The courtroom was silent, except for the soft shuffle of papers and the occasional cough from the back rows. At the center of the room, an 8-year-old girl named Lily sat quietly in the witness chair, her small frame seeming even smaller beneath the harsh lights and towering adults around her. She wasn't looking at anyone. Her eyes were fixed on the polished wooden floor. Around her, the judge, attorneys, jury members, and spectators waited expectantly for her to say something. Lily's fingers nervously twitched in her lap. She wasn't sure why she was here today, or why so many grown-ups were staring at her, like she was the most important person in the world. All she knew was that this room made her heart beat faster, her throat tighten, and her mouth shut tight. She had been called to tell her story, but the words simply wouldn't come out. Beside her sat Max, her golden retriever. Max was no ordinary dog. He wore a soft, blue vest embroidered with the words, "Therapy Dog." He lay calmly, eyes half closed, but always alert, sensing the tension in the room, and more importantly, in Lily. Max had been trained to help children. Like her, children who found big places and big crowds overwhelming. Children who needed a quiet friend to lean on when everything felt too heavy. Today was one of those days. The judge, a kind-looking man with silver hair and gentle eyes, glanced at the lawyers and then back at Lily. He spoke softly so the courtroom could hear. "Lily, we're here to listen to you. Whenever you feel ready, you can tell us what happened." But Lily didn't respond. Instead, she shifted slightly, her hand slipping behind her back, just out of sight. Her mother sat a few rows away, clutching a tissue, eyes bright but proud. She had spent months preparing Lily for this moment, not just practicing answers, but teaching her to trust Max and herself. Her father stood quietly by the side, holding a folder tightly, trying to appear strong. The prosecutor, a woman with kind eyes but firm voice, approached the witness stand. "Lily," she said gently, "I know this is hard, but you're very brave. When you're ready, you can tell us what happened." Still, Lily stayed silent. The courtroom grew tense. The jurors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Everyone wondered, would the little girl speak? Would justice be served? But then, something unexpected happened. Lily's fingers gave a subtle tap against her thigh, a signal only Max would understand. The gesture was so quiet, so small, that no one else noticed. Max's ears perked up instantly. Without hesitation, he stood and walked around to Lily's side. Gently, he rested his head on her lap. A hush fell over the courtroom. Max's calm, steady presence seemed to fill the space with warmth. Lily took a deep breath. Her shoulders relaxed just a little. The invisible weight pressing down on her heart began to lift. She looked down at Max, her eyes softening, and then slowly looked up to meet the eyes of the judge, the prosecutor, even the jury. In that moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. This was more than a courtroom drama. This was the story of a young girl finding her voice in the most unexpected way, through the loyalty of a dog who understood her fears better than any human could. The judge nodded encouragingly. "Take your time, Lily." And with Max's head still resting on her lap, Lily whispered the first words that no one had dared to hope for. "I want to tell the truth." Max was no ordinary dog. To most people in the courtroom, he looked like any gentle golden retriever, soft fur shining under the bright lights, big brown eyes full of kindness, and a calm demeanor that made him seem like the perfect companion. But for Lily, Max was so much more than a pet. He was her guardian, her silent protector, and the key to unlocking a courage she didn't know she had. Their story began years ago when Lily was just 5 years old. After a difficult time at school and some scary experiences at home, Lily had started to withdraw into herself. She stopped talking to teachers and friends. Her smile faded, and anxiety took over her small world. That's when her parents decided to bring Max into their lives. Max had been specially trained to work with children who needed emotional support. His training wasn't just about following commands or fetching toys. It was about sensing when Lily felt scared, overwhelmed, or too shy to speak. He learned to respond quietly and patiently, providing comfort when words failed. Over time, Lily and Max developed a secret language, a way to communicate without speaking aloud. At home, Lily's parents helped her practice small hand signals. A tap on her thigh, a gentle squeeze of his paw, things only Max would understand. Whenever Lily felt anxious or afraid, she could send Max a signal, and he would be there in the way only a loyal dog could be. Their bond became unbreakable. Now, in this intimidating courtroom, surrounded by strangers and serious faces, Lily's secret language was her lifeline. The nervousness that had made her freeze was slowly beginning to fade. The moment she gave Max that tiny tap, he knew exactly what she needed. Max's calmness was infectious. His steady breathing, his soft eyes, and the warmth of his fur against Lily's hand were all reminders that she wasn't alone. For Lily, it was as if Max was telling her, "You're safe. You can do this." Outside the courtroom, Lily's parents had watched this bond grow. Her mother remembered the first time she saw Max respond to Lily's hidden signals, how the dog would nudge Lily's hand, lean in closer, and stay by her side even when things felt overwhelming. It was like magic, a quiet kind of magic that gave Lily strength. "Max knows when I'm scared," Lily had told her mother one afternoon. "He helps me find the words." Her father had smiled, tears in his eyes. "He's more than a dog. He's your best friend." Max's role in the courtroom was no accident. He wasn't just there for comfort. He was there to help Lily tell her story, a story too important to be silenced. The lawyers understood this. The judge allowed Max to be with Lily because they knew that sometimes bravery doesn't come from words alone, but from the support behind them. As the prosecutor prepared to ask her next question, Lily's confidence grew. With Max by her side, she felt a little braver. The tap on her thigh wasn't just a signal to Max anymore. It was a signal to herself. A reminder that she could speak, that her voice mattered. And slowly, that voice began to form. The courtroom watched in quiet amazement as Lily took a deep breath, lifted her chin, and began to answer the questions. Her voice was soft but steady. She told what she remembered, the things that had scared her, the times she had felt alone, and how Max had always been there. Max never left her side. He stayed close, leaning into her as if to remind her she wasn't just telling a story. She was standing up for herself. Outside the courtroom, news crews waited, cameras pointed toward the courthouse. People were eager to hear what a young girl and her faithful dog could possibly teach an entire courtroom about courage and truth. But inside, it was simpler than that. It was about trust. It was about a girl and a dog who shared a secret, a hidden signal that no one else could see, and the strength that came from knowing she wasn't alone. As Lily continued to speak, the courtroom began to understand something important. Sometimes, the smallest gestures carry the greatest power. And sometimes, heroes come on four paws with a heart bigger than most. The courtroom was tense. Every eye was fixed on Lily, the small girl who had barely spoken until now. The silence was thick, almost heavy enough to feel. Everyone was waiting for her to say something more, something that would shed light on the case, something that would move the trial forward. The judge watched quietly, his expression soft but expectant. The prosecutor held her breath, hoping Lily could find the strength to tell her story. Then, almost imperceptibly, Lily's hand moved again. This time, the movement was smaller, more careful. A gentle tap on her thigh, hidden behind the bench, unseen by most in the courtroom. But to Max, That simple gesture was a signal as clear as a bell. He perked up immediately. Max's golden fur shimmered under the bright courtroom lights as he rose slowly from his spot beside Lily. His eyes locked onto hers, full of understanding and patience. Without hesitation, he walked around the witness stand and settled beside her. Then, in a move that surprised everyone, he rested his head gently on her lap. The courtroom went silent. The jurors shifted in their seats, some startled, some clearly moved. The judge leaned forward, a look of curiosity mixed with approval on his face. For a moment, the entire room seemed to breathe differently, as if Max's calm presence had washed over the tension like a soothing wave. No one had expected this. It was a powerful moment, a silent exchange between a girl and her dog that spoke louder than words. Lily's eyes met Max's, and for the first time, a flicker of calm settled over her features. Her small fingers stroked the soft fur on Max's head, and her breathing slowed. It was as if Max had taken all the fear from her heart and held it gently, making room for something stronger to grow. The prosecutor smiled softly, stepping back slightly. "Take your time, Lily," she said kindly. And then Lily did something that stunned the courtroom. She took a deep breath, and with Max still by her side, she whispered, "I'm ready." Her voice was quiet, barely audible at first, but it carried a surprising strength. The kind of strength that only comes when you feel safe, truly safe, to speak your truth. Lily began to tell her story. Her words were simple, honest, and clear. She spoke about the scary times, the moments she had hidden away, and the people who hadn't listened when she tried to speak up before. She described how Max had been her constant companion through it all, the one who never judged, the one who always understood. The courtroom was captivated. The jury leaned forward, eyes locked on the little girl who was suddenly brave enough to share her experience. The judge nodded slowly, silently encouraging her to continue. Even the defense attorney looked on quietly, clearly impressed by Lily's courage. Max stayed by her side the entire time, his head resting gently on her lap, a steady reminder that she was not alone. Whenever Lily hesitated or her voice wavered, Max would nudge her hand, giving her the courage to keep going. In that courtroom, Max was more than a dog. He was a lifeline. Lily's testimony was heartfelt, but controlled, full of the kind of bravery that takes years to learn. Her voice, once barely audible, grew stronger with each word. The hidden signal she gave Max was more than just a gesture. It was the key that unlocked her silence, a bridge between fear and courage. The prosecutor carefully asked questions that allowed Lily to tell her story without overwhelming her. Each answer revealed more about the truth, more about the events that had brought them all to this courtroom. Outside, the media waited eagerly, hoping to capture the moment when a young girl's courage and a dog's loyalty would change everything. Inside, it was happening quietly, almost invisible. By the time Lily finished speaking, there was a sense of awe in the room. The power of her words, combined with Max's steady presence, had created a moment no one would forget. The judge gave a small smile and said, "Thank you, Lily. You've done very well." Lily reached down to pet Max again, her heart lighter than it had been. Weeks. What started as a small, hidden signal had turned into a turning point, not just for Lily, but for everyone watching. Because sometimes, the bravest words come from the quietest voices, and the strongest support comes on 4 paws. Lily's whispered words hung in the courtroom like a fragile thread, but something remarkable had already begun to shift. The tension that had wrapped around the room like a heavy fog started to lift. Her small voice, once barely audible, now carried a quiet power that no one could ignore. For the first time, the courtroom saw not a frightened little girl, but a brave young witness who was beginning to take control of her own story. Max remained by her side, his head still resting gently on her lap. His steady presence was a silent reassurance. Whenever Lily's voice wavered, he nudged her hand with his wet nose, reminding her she was not alone. This simple, unspoken connection gave her the courage to keep going. The prosecutor asked her a gentle question. "Lily, can you tell us what happened the day you felt scared?" Lily took a deep breath, her fingers curling around Max's soft fur. "It was after school," she said softly. "I was walking home, and I saw something that made me really scared. I didn't know who to tell." The courtroom fell silent. No one interrupted. Everyone leaned in to listen. Her voice grew a little stronger. "I tried to tell my teacher, but I couldn't say the words right. I felt like my throat was closing." She glanced down at Max and back up at the judge, her eyes shining with the effort it took to speak. "Max helped me," she said quietly. "When I felt like I couldn't talk, he stayed close. He made me feel safe." That simple statement caused a ripple of emotion to pass through the courtroom. The jurors exchanged looks, some nodding slightly, others with tears glistening in their eyes. Even the stern defense attorney seemed touched by the bond between the girl and her dog. The judge leaned forward, speaking in a calm voice. "Thank you for sharing that, Lily. You're doing very well." Encouraged, Lily continued, her story unfolding like the first rays of sunlight breaking through dark clouds. She spoke about her fear, about moments when she wanted to give up, and about how Max never left her side, a constant source of comfort when the world felt too overwhelming. The prosecutor carefully guided her through the questions, giving her space and time to answer honestly. Lily's words painted a picture not only of fear, but of hope, courage, and the unique friendship that had helped her survive. Throughout the testimony, Max was more than just a pet. He was a bridge between Lily's silence and her voice. Every small gesture, a nudge, a lick, a soft whine, spoke volumes. The courtroom watched as a quiet miracle unfolded. A little girl finding her voice with the help of her loyal dog. Outside, reporters whispered among themselves, amazed at the unusual scene. The story of Lily and Max was spreading quickly, a testament to the power of trust and companionship in the most difficult moments. Inside, the jury was deeply moved. They saw more than a case. They saw a real child, facing her fears with an extraordinary friend by her side. As the questioning continued, Lily's confidence grew. She began to look around the courtroom more, meeting the eyes of jurors and lawyers alike. Her answers were clear and honest, filled with the kind of innocence and bravery that touches hearts. Max's presence never wavered. He remained calm, a gentle anchor in the storm. The defense attorney chose his words carefully, respecting the girl's courage. He asked fewer questions than expected, knowing that pushing too hard would only hurt the case and the girl's spirit. The prosecutor wrapped up her questioning. The room was filled with a quiet reverence. Lily had done more than testify. She had changed the energy of the courtroom. The judge called a short recess, and as the people began to stand, there was a sense that something extraordinary had happened. Max stood with Lily, wagging his tail. Softly, the small signal that started this moment, a tap on the thigh, had opened a door. The ice of fear was beginning to crack, and the courtroom was witnessing the start of a young girl's journey from silence to strength. The courtroom buzzed quietly with anticipation as the recess ended. Everyone returned to their seats, but the atmosphere had shifted. What had started as a tense and uncertain trial was now charged with an almost electric energy. The jurors looked more attentive, the lawyers more focused, and the judge wore a thoughtful expression. Lily's small hand tightened around Max's leash as she took her place back in the witness chair. Max sat calmly beside her, his presence as steady as a rock. For the first time since the trial began, it felt like Lily was in control, like the courtroom belonged to her, not the other way around. The defense attorney rose slowly, walking toward the stand. His eyes briefly met Lily's, and he nodded in quiet respect. Then, with a careful tone, he began to ask his questions. Unlike the aggressive cross-examinations often seen in court, this was different. He spoke gently, almost cautiously, knowing that Lily's courage was fragile but growing. His questions were designed to understand, not to intimidate. "Lily," he began, "can you tell us what you remember about the days leading up to the incident?" Lily's voice was steady. "I remember feeling scared a lot. I didn't want to go to school, but Max was always with me. He helped me get through the days." Max responded immediately, leaning into her side as if to say, "I'm right here." The jurors exchanged glances, clearly moved by the sight of the dog's loyalty. As the defense attorney continued, the courtroom listened closely to Lily's calm and measured answers. She didn't rush. She didn't break down. Instead, she spoke with a quiet honesty that carried more weight than any dramatic outburst could. The judge watched her closely, impressed by her resilience. Even the prosecutor sat back slightly, giving the defense room to question without interruption. At one point, the defense asked, "Lily, did anyone ever make you feel unsafe before?" Lily paused, her eyes briefly closing as she searched for the right words. Then, with a small nod, she whispered, "Yes, but I always knew Max would protect me." Max gave a soft whine, as if to confirm her words. The courtroom was captivated by this extraordinary relationship, a young girl and her dog, linked by trust and bravery. The jurors' faces showed empathy and growing admiration for Lily's quiet strength. Throughout the questioning, Max remained calm and attentive. He never moved away from Lily's side, offering a steadying presence that seemed to give her the confidence to face each question. The tension in the courtroom was palpable. Every answer Lily gave brought the jurors closer to the truth she was bravely sharing. It was clear she wasn't just a witness. She was the heart of the case. As the defense concluded, Lily looked up and met the eyes of the jurors directly for the first time. Her gaze was steady and clear, no longer filled with fear, but with quiet determination. The prosecutor then stood to deliver her closing questions, knowing that Lily had done most of the hard work. She asked Lily to explain, in her own words, what justice meant to her. Lily's answer was simple, but it resonated through the courtroom. Justice means being heard. It means being safe. It means no one else has to be scared like I was. A few jurors blinked back tears. The courtroom seemed to hold its breath once again. The judge nodded solemnly. "Thank you, Lily. You've been very brave." As Lily stepped down from the witness stand, the courtroom remained unusually quiet. The usual shuffle and murmurs were replaced by a respectful stillness. Everyone felt the weight of what they had just witnessed. A young girl's courage, supported by a dog who refused to leave her side. Max wagged his tail gently, sensing the change in energy. Lily reached down to scratch behind his ears, a small smile breaking across her face. This day had been more than a trial. It had been a testament to the power of silent strength. A girl and her dog standing together against fear. As the court prepared to move forward, it was clear that the story was no longer just about the case. It was about hope, about trust, about the unbreakable bond between a girl who wouldn't give up and a dog who never stopped believing in her. The courtroom remained on edge, waiting for what would come next, but something had already changed. Forever. As the trial moved into its final stages, whispers circulated through the courtroom about the remarkable role Max had played. People weren't just impressed by Lily's courage, they were amazed by the dog's quiet heroism. Max had done something no one expected. He had become the unexpected hero of the courtroom. Lily's story was powerful, but it was Max's presence that gave her the strength to tell it. Every subtle signal she sent, every nudge Max responded to, revealed a bond deeper than words. The jury was beginning to see Max not just as a dog, but as a symbol of hope, comfort, and courage. The judge, recognizing this unique connection, allowed Max to remain in the courtroom even during the closing arguments, a rare allowance in any trial. His presence is clearly helping the witness, the judge had said quietly to the attorneys. The prosecution began its closing statement, reminding the courtroom of the weight of the testimony and the importance of hearing the truth. But even as the lawyer spoke, all eyes kept drifting back to Lily and Max, sitting side by side. When the defense attorney rose to give his closing argument, he paused to acknowledge Max. "This dog," he said, gesturing toward Max's calm figure, "has shown us the power of loyalty and trust. We can all learn from that." The courtroom murmured in agreement that the jury looked moved, the jurors exchanging glances as they considered the deep impact Max had made. They were no longer just evaluating facts, they were witnessing a profound story of resilience. After the closing statements, the judge gave final instructions to the jury. Then, as the jurors left to deliberate, Lily looked down at Max and whispered, "Thank you." Her voice was soft, but filled with gratitude. Max gave a happy wag of his tail, as if to say, "You did all the hard work. I'm just here for you." Outside the courthouse, the media swarmed, eager to capture the incredible bond between the girl and her dog. Reporters called it a miracle friendship, a story that reminded everyone that sometimes the smallest signals can carry the greatest meaning. But for Lily and her family, Max was simply family. A guardian who had walked with her through the darkest moments, helping her find light when she thought there was none. The jury deliberated for several hours. Inside the deliberation room, they discussed not only the evidence, but the courage they had witnessed in the courtroom. Many spoke about how Max's presence had given Lily strength, how the dog's calm and steady nature had helped her find her voice. Finally, the jury returned. The courtroom fell silent as the judge asked for their verdict. The foreperson stood and said, "We find the defendant guilty." A wave of relief and emotion swept through the courtroom. Lily's parents hugged each other tightly, tears streaming down their faces. Lily looked down at Max, her eyes shining. She reached out and hugged him, whispering, "We did it." The judge thanked everyone and praised Lily's bravery, making a special note about the important role Max had played. "This case reminds us all," he said, "that courage can come in many forms, sometimes from the smallest voices and the quietest companions." That day, the story of Lily and Max touched hearts far beyond the courtroom walls. It was shared in newspapers, on television, and across social media. People everywhere were inspired by the girl who sent a hidden signal to her dog, and by the dog who answered it, changing everything. For Lily, life began to change after the trial. She started to smile more, speak more openly, and dream bigger than ever before. And Max? He remained her faithful protector, her constant friend. Together, they proved that even in the darkest times, hope can be found in the unlikeliest places, sometimes in a gentle tap on a thigh and a loyal dog's understanding eyes. The courtroom doors had closed behind them, but for Lily and Max, the journey was far from over. The verdict had brought justice, yes, but it also opened a new chapter, one filled with healing, hope, and the promise of brighter days ahead. In the weeks following the trial, Lily's world began to change in ways she had never imagined. The fear that once held her captive started to loosen its grip. She found herself smiling more freely, laughing with her parents, and even making new friends at school. Her teachers noticed the difference, commenting on the newfound confidence in her voice. Yet through it all, Max remained her steadfast companion. Wherever Lily went, Max was there, silently watching, comforting, and protecting. Their bond, strengthened in the courtroom, had become unbreakable. One afternoon, As they walked through the neighborhood park, Lily stopped and looked at Max. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." Max wagged his tail, his eyes bright and full of love. It was a moment of quiet understanding between them. No words needed. Lily's parents noticed the transformation too. Her mother admitted to friends that she hadn't seen Lily this happy and peaceful in years. Her father spoke about how the experience had taught their family the true meaning of resilience. The community rallied around them as well. Local schools invited Lily to speak about her experience, hoping to inspire other children to find courage in their own struggles. News outlets shared her story widely, turning Lily and Max into symbols of hope for many families facing similar challenges. It wasn't just public attention that changed Lily's life. It was the quiet moments, like bedtime stories read aloud with Max lying nearby, or walks in the evening when the sun dipped low and the world felt calm again. During one such walk, Lily's teacher approached her with a gentle smile. "You have something special, Lily," she said. "Your story will help others find their voice." Lily beamed. She didn't fully understand it yet, but she felt proud that Max sensed it too. He often looked at Lily with what seemed like pride, as if knowing that their journey together had made a difference far beyond what anyone had imagined. At school, Lily joined a support group for kids who had experienced trauma. She spoke openly about the importance of having someone who listens, someone who understands, even when words fail. She always brought Max along when she could, and his calm presence helped other children feel safe. Lily's bravery inspired not only her peers, but also the adults around her. Her story reminded everyone that healing is a process, one that takes time, patience, and sometimes a little help from an unexpected friend. Meanwhile, Max became something of a local celebrity. The library hosted Meet Max Days, where children could read to him and feel comforted by his gentle nature. Animal trainers spoke about the incredible role dogs like Max play in emotional support, emphasizing the unique bond he shared with Lily. For Lily, though, Max was simply family, her guardian, her comfort, and her best friend. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Lily whispered, "We did it, Max. We really did it." Max rested his head on her knee, his warm eyes reflecting the fading light. Their story wasn't just about a trial or a verdict. It was about the journey from fear to courage, from silence to voice, and from loneliness to love. And it was far from over, because every day, in small ways, Lily and Max continued to show the world what true bravery looks like. A quiet tap, a loyal heart, and the courage to speak when it matters most. Months had passed since the trial, yet the story of Lily and Max continued to ripple far beyond the courtroom walls. What began as a quiet signal between a young girl and her dog had grown into something much larger, a symbol of hope, strength, and the incredible power of connection. Lily's life was no longer defined by fear. She had learned to speak up, to trust others, and to believe in herself. But perhaps most importantly, she had learned that she was never truly alone. Max, her faithful companion, was always by her side, a living reminder that love and loyalty can overcome even the darkest moments. Together, they had inspired a community. Local schools had started programs encouraging children to speak about their feelings, and many had welcomed therapy dogs like Max to help students find comfort and courage. Lily's story was shared at conferences, in newsletters, and across social media, touching hearts everywhere. One day, Lily was invited to a special event, a ceremony honoring heroes who make a difference in the lives of others. She stood before the crowd, Max sitting loyally at her feet, and spoke with a confidence that was once unimaginable. "Sometimes," she said softly, "all it takes is a small signal to be heard. And sometimes the greatest strength comes from those who listen without words." The audience erupted in applause. Many wiped tears from their eyes, moved by the little girl who had found her voice with the help of a loyal dog. But Lily knew the real hero wasn't just her. It was Max. After the ceremony, Lily knelt down to hug Max tightly. "Thank you for being my hero," she whispered. Max licked her cheek, his eyes shining with the same love and devotion he had shown since the very beginning. Back home, their routine remained simple but full of meaning. Walks through the park, quiet moments curled up with a book, and shared adventures that reminded Lily how far she'd come. Each day was a new chance to heal, to grow, and to be brave. Lily's parents watched with pride and relief. The little girl who had once been too scared to speak was now blossoming into someone full of hope and determination. They knew the road ahead would still have challenges, but with Max by her side, Lily was ready to face anything. In the years that followed, their story continued to inspire others. Families struggling with their own battles reached out, finding comfort in Lily's journey. Schools and organizations partnered to bring therapy dogs to children in need, spreading the message that no one has to face their fears alone. And through it all, the bond between Lily and Max remained unbreakable. One quiet evening, as the sun set in hues of gold and pink, Lily sat on the porch with Max resting his head in her lap. She smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace she had never known before. "We did it, Max," she said softly. "You helped me find my voice." Max looked up at her with eyes full of understanding and love, as if to say, "And I always will." Their journey was a reminder that sometimes the smallest signals can change the course of a life. That courage often comes from the quietest places, and that the greatest heroes aren't always the ones in the spotlight, but the ones who stand beside us, patiently waiting for us to be brave. In the end, it was a story about trust, friendship, and the unshakable power of love, and it was a story that would never be forgotten.